Chimozi reached out as he spoke, his fingers curling as surging time law power burst forth, condensing into a vast golden hand that closed around the golden flame. Sensing the profound time law essence within it, a satisfied smile flickered across his face, and he swiftly stored the flame away. With the golden flame gone, the altar could no longer endure. It collapsed completely, revealing a massive black hole yawning open in the ground. Devilish chi erupted from within like a raging tide. One after another, dozens of sinister devilish creatures leapt out, their shrill howls filled with manic joy at their long-awaited freedom. At their head stood a towering devil over 100 feet tall. Its head resembled a mountain goat's, its body nearly human, save for a pair of pale, fleshy wings on its back. Its arms were crimson, studded with jagged bone spikes that gleamed coldly. Its gaze settled upon Chimozi, hesitation flashing briefly as it sensed his immense aura, but the bloodlust and fury festering for countless years soon drowned all reason. Go! Tear those two eyesores apart. Let them be your first meal upon returning to this world, the crimson-armed devil roared, its voice so harsh and vile that Xiangshan shuddered involuntarily. The Devilish Horde erupted in excitement and charged at Chimozi and Xiangshan in a frenzied tide. Chimozi frowned faintly in disgust and flicked his sleeve. Golden flames surged forth, forming a blazing barrier before him. The foremost devils slammed straight into it, releasing anguished shrieks as their bodies withered at once, vitality drained away. In moments, they crumbled into ash, forcing the remaining devils to recoil in terror. The crimson-armed devil bellowed in fury. It stretched out a hand, which swelled in an instant to tens of thousands of feet, blotting out the sky as it descended like a dark cloud. Beneath that immense palm, the devil's eyes turned blood red, their auras surging as they charged again without fear. Though standing far behind Chimozi, Xiangshan felt his heart pound wildly, an uncontrollable urge toward violence rising within him. Protect your consciousness! Chimozi's voice thundered in his mind, jolting him awake. Xiangshan hastily complied, guarding his mind as Chimozi stepped forward and swept his sleeve upward. A burst of golden light shot skyward, slamming into the giant crimson palm with a deafening boom. The devil shuddered violently, its hand shrinking rapidly as it withdrew. I am not your enemy, Bloodhand, Chimozi shouted coldly. Order your minions to stand down, or I will slaughter them all. You know me? The crimson-armed devil asked warily. Who are you? Chimozi flicked an object through the air. The devil caught it, revealing a white bone badge shaped like a skeletal hand. This is Brother Whitebones, it exclaimed. Whitebone and Copper Lion are already free. I came to free you as well, Chimozi said flatly. Then who exactly are you? The devil pressed. If you were wise, you wouldn't ask. The Chimozi snorted. Your brothers are waiting. With that, he vanished together with Xiangshan. The crimson-armed devil stared at the bone badge in silence, deep in thought. Shortly after, it issued orders, and the Devilish Horde withdrew from the Origin Fire Palace. Only once the plaza lay utterly deserted did Wenzhong finally arrive. Far too late. Surveying the ravaged palace and ruined altar, he cursed under his breath and began restoring the formation. After leaving the Origin Fire Palace, Han Li continued ascending. Only after flying for a long while and confirming that Chimozi was not in pursuit did he summon the white bead. Its surrounding white flames had faded entirely, leaving it looking plain and unremarkable. Rather than disappointment, delight flickered in Han Li's eyes. True immortal treasures often leaked spiritual or law power even at rest, yet this bead's power lay perfectly restrained, revealing itself only when invoked. Such complete concealment marked an immortal treasure of the highest grade. Among Han Li's possessions, only the heaven-controlling vial and the golden plate from the true mantra sect compared to it. Han Li exhaled a streak of azure light into the bead while forming rapid incantation seals. White flames flared instantly, releasing terrifying heat that warped space within hundreds of feet. Dense fire law fluctuations surged, and in the blink of an eye, all white mist within dozens of kilometers evaporated. Already prepared, Han Li enveloped himself in golden light, using time law to keep the fire law at bay. With the heat contained, he calmly endured it through his heavenly baleful purgatory arts. At that moment, a clear cry rang out as the essence fire raven flew from his sleeve, perching on his shoulder and staring greedily at the bead. Much of the surrounding heat was immediately absorbed into its body. As Han Li continued refining the bead, a faint spiritual link formed. At his command, a long tongue of white flame shot forth and swept around a nearby mountain. The peak stood 2,000 to 3,000 feet tall, radiating dense metal attribute power. After ages within the Aeon Pagoda, it had transformed into a massive vein of profound copper stone. The white flame passed through the mountain without resistance. The upper half slid away cleanly, crashing down with a thunderous roar. The cut surface was mirror smooth, as if cleaved by a divine blade. Han Li's eyes shone, then dimmed slightly. The bead's might exceeded expectations, yet without fire attribute cultivation, he could not draw out its full strength. The Essence Fire Raven cried eagerly. "Don't worry," Han Li said. "I can't use it fully anyway, I'll give it to you, but consume it carefully." He tossed the bead over. Overjoyed, the raven swallowed it at once. Silver flames surged wildly, mingled with bursts of rainbow fire. Unrefined rainbow fire pill sand still lingered within it, and now multiple flames clashed violently, thunder rumbling as its body bulged dangerously. Han Li's expression changed. He swept his sleeve, releasing golden light to envelop the Essence Fire Raven, while his spiritual sense plunged inward to examine its condition. The Essence Fire Raven turned its gaze upon Han Li, pain flickering briefly in its eyes, yet that pain was utterly eclipsed by unrestrained joy. In the next instant, a layer of pure white flame erupted across its body, sweeping from head to tail like a cleansing tide. The rainbow flames clinging to it were erased in a heartbeat, and the power of the rainbow fire pill sand was fully refined, seamlessly merging into its form. Not only was that chaotic power absorbed, but all of the raven's accumulated fiery essence was purified as well. Every impurity was stripped away, leaving behind only the most pristine core of flame. The grotesque bulges that had marred its body vanished, and its form abruptly shrank to half its former size. Yet its aura surged explosively, and faint ripples of fire law power radiated outward. These fluctuations mirrored those of the white bead. No, they surpassed them, hinting at a loftier tier of fire laws. Over countless years, the Essence Fire Raven had grown stronger by devouring flames, yet it had never truly awakened fire law power. Now, under the tempering of the white bead, its strength was distilled to perfection, giving rise to fire laws of astonishing purity. With an exhilarated cry, it spread its wings and soared skyward, its body transforming into a colossal silver fire raven over 1,000 feet long. Its form was sleek and majestic, a crown of fire blazing atop its head, 9 long flaming feathers unfurling from its tail like banners of sovereignty. Terrifying waves of fiery might poured from its body, rivaling the earlier power of the white bead itself, shaking the surrounding space until it quivered and groaned. The raven circled the heavens, its cries growing ever more resounding, eyes blazing with excitement. Suddenly, silver flames shot from its wings like falling stars, raining down upon the mountain face below. Each streak pierced deep into the rock with effortless ease, carving unfathomable holes before detonating in thunderous succession. The explosions fused together, forming a vast sea of silver fire spanning dozens of kilometers. Unbearable heat roared outward, melting everything it touched. In the blink of an eye, an enormous crater was burned into the mountainside. Yet compared to the mountain's vastness, the damage was no more than a shallow scar. Han Li's eyes gleamed with delight. The Essence Fire Raven had exceeded even his expectations, but his brows soon knit together. This place lay too close to the Origin Fire Palace. Such a commotion could easily draw Chimozi's attention. He immediately issued a command through their spiritual connection, ordering the raven to stop. The Essence Fire Raven, however, was far too engrossed in its revelry. Ignoring him completely, it let out another piercing cry and opened its beak, releasing the white bead. In an instant, the bead swelled from a few inches across to a colossal sphere nearly 30,000 feet in diameter. Blazing white flames engulfed its surface, turning it into a dazzling white sun suspended in the sky. Everything within hundreds of kilometers was washed in blinding light, while the temperature soared catastrophically. The mountain face began melting anew as a devastating aura of annihilation spread outward, warping space itself. Dozens of kilometers around, space twisted and blurred, and countless spatial rifts tore open. Hanli rushed forward to intervene, only for several spatial rifts to erupt directly in his path. His expression tightened. At his command, the mantra Treasured Axis appeared behind him, releasing waves of golden ripples that swept across a 1,000-foot radius. The rifts caught within them froze instantly, yet their violent power caused the ripples to tremble, as though on the verge of collapse. Hanli hastily poured in more immortal spiritual power to stabilize them, staring in shock at the raging white bead. The tongue of white flame he had wielded earlier was laughably weak compared to this display. Even the attacks unleashed by Xiangshan and Lanyan using their treasures paled beside the bead's might. The massive white bead slammed into the mountain face with an earth-shattering boom. This time, the entire mountain shuddered, rocks cascading down like a storm. Embedded deep within the rock, the bead burrowed forward relentlessly, white flames melting stone as though intent on piercing the mountain through. At that critical moment, radiant golden light erupted, enveloping the bead. Tremendous time law power surged forth, slowing its advance to a crawl. Hanli appeared beside the mountain and reached out. Over 200 time law threads shot from his sleeve, weaving together into a gigantic golden hand that plunged into the mountain and seized the bead. White flames scorched it furiously, yet the golden hand did not yield. "That's enough," Hanli said coldly, fixing the essence fire raven with a stern glare. The excitement in the raven's eyes vanished at once, replaced by timidity. It rapidly shrank back into its silver, childlike form. The white bead followed suit, shrinking instantly and returning to its side as the sea of silver flames was extinguished in a flash. The fire law aura within the silver figure dimmed sharply, dwindling to the faintest trace. Unbothered, it flew to Hanli and drooped its head like a chastised child. Hanli chuckled despite himself and patted it gently. "That's fine. Just don't misbehave again." Delighted by his forgiveness, the silver figure perched on his shoulder and swallowed the white bead. At once, the flames around it brightened slightly, and wisps of fire attribute spiritual chi streamed in from the surroundings. Hanli's eyes widened in surprise. In the past, the essence fire raven could only recover by devouring flames. Now, aided by the white bead, it could directly absorb fire attribute spiritual chi from heaven and earth. The bead was not merely a fearsome weapon. It possessed other profound uses as well. Even Hanli doubted he could withstand that earlier strike head-on. Had the bead not expended most of its power tunneling into the mountain, capturing it would have been no easy feat. By his estimation, the raven could unleash such an attack twice in succession. With this new trump card, his confidence in facing Chimozi rose another notch. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, Hanli resumed his ascent as a streak of golden light. The 7th level of the Aeon Pagoda was fraught with danger, filled with freed, devilish creatures that could strike without warning. After such a disturbance, lingering was unwise. As the silver figure finished swallowing the bead, tendrils of white mist crept back into the area. Soon, Hanli vanished within them. Minutes later, 2 streaks of light arrived from below, stopping at the devastated site to reveal Chimozi and Xiangshan. Chimozi studied the ravaged mountain face in silence, then lifted his gaze thoughtfully. "A fierce battle must have occurred here," Xiangshan said, surveying the damage. "I sense lingering fluctuations of time law power," Chimozi replied slowly. One combatant was likely Hanli. As for his opponent, whoever it was had mastered fire laws and fought using the heavenly Li fire bead. Xiangshan frowned as he spoke, confusion clear on his face. Didn't Hanli obtain the heavenly Li fire bead? Could someone have snatched it from him? Chimozi did not answer immediately. With a flick of his hand, he summoned a palm-sized golden mirror. Golden ripples spread outward from the mirror, sweeping across dozens of kilometers before flowing back into its surface. Moments later, 3 lights surfaced upon the mirror, 1 gold, 1 white, and 1 red. The golden light pulsed with fluctuations of time law power. Both the white and red lights radiated fire law power, yet though the red glow was far smaller, the aura it emitted was vastly more tyrannical than the white. "These red fire law fluctuations," Xiangshan muttered in astonishment. "They're overpowering even the heavenly Li fire bead. What could they be?" A trace of essential fire law power, Chimozi replied calmly. Naturally, it far exceeds ordinary fire laws. Xiangshan sucked in a breath. But who left it behind? None of those who entered the Aeon Pagoda cultivate fire laws. Chimozi's gaze darkened. Among the myriad laws of heaven and earth, the three paramount laws stood supreme, yet essential laws ranked just beneath them, and were nothing to underestimate. He knew every cultivator who had entered the pagoda, and none wielded fire laws. The thought that an unknown party might have slipped inside without his knowledge unsettled him. "There's no need to dwell on it," Chimozi said at last. "We'll know once we catch up." The two transformed into streaks of golden light and vanished. High on the mountain, Han Li continued his ascent with the fiery silver figure perched on his shoulder. The higher he climbed, the denser the white mist became, thickening until it clung to his protective light and dragged heavily against him. His speed steadily dropped until barely a tenth of its former pace remained. Suddenly, Han Li halted, his expression sharpening as he stared into the mist ahead. The silver figure tilted its head in confusion, but Han Li remained silent. From beyond, he sensed an exceptionally powerful surge of time law fluctuations, clearer and more intense than anything before. The golden flames he had seen on the altars shared the same origin as this aura. If his judgment was correct, the source ahead could only be the Aeon Divine Lamp. From his earlier questioning of Lei Yusei, Han Li knew the Dark Heaven's devilish deity was sealed within a primary array where the Aeon Divine Lamp resided, while the 5 array cores merely reinforced it. If so, the sealed devilish deity lay just ahead. Though Han Li feared it less than Lei Yusei's group, he knew a devilish deity comparable to a Dao ancestor was no foe to confront lightly. He had already gained 3 Fire Age Firefly hives, greatly enriching his time law threads, and had just obtained the white bead. His harvest was already immense. Advancing further meant stepping directly into the sealed ground of the Dark Heaven's devilish deity, a risk far greater than before. At that moment, a deep thump echoed through the mist, sending faint ripples through the air. Han Li's vigilance flared. The white bead suddenly flew out from the silver figure's body, glowing brightly as it trembled and hummed, resonating with something unseen. After only a few breaths, the reaction ceased. The silver figure hastily swallowed the bead again, clutching its belly tightly, as if afraid it might escape. Have the other array cores been destroyed as well? Han Li pondered, gently patting the silver figure's head. The 5 cores were linked, and the bead had governed one of them. It was only natural for it to respond to changes elsewhere. He soon cast the thought aside and looked forward once more. Having come this far, retreat would be a waste. Moreover, he wished to see the Aeon Divine Lamp with his own eyes, and he had already agreed to cooperate with Fox 3 and the others. Decision made. Han Li summoned a massive golden sword projection around his body and surged forward. Golden lightning danced across the blade as overwhelming sword chi tore through the mist, sharply increasing his speed. Yet the deeper he went, the tougher the mist became, forcing him to slow once more. The silver figure pouted, leapt from his shoulder, and spat out the white bead, merging it into the sword projection. White flames flowed out, reinforcing the blade and slicing through the mist with ease. "Conserve your strength," Han Li warned. The silver figure merely smiled, unfazed. Inspecting it, Han Li was surprised and delighted to find the energy expenditure minimal. Reassured, he pressed forward at full speed. Before long, the mist ahead thinned, and the outline of the entire mountain came into view. He had nearly reached the summit. Just then, a thunderous boom rang out. Han Li slammed into an unseen barrier. His golden sword projection shattered instantly, and he was hurled backward. Thanks to his formidable body, he was unharmed, though the white bead was knocked free and quickly reclaimed by the silver figure. Regaining his balance, Han Li fixed his gaze ahead and spotted a faint, semi-transparent white light barrier stretching endlessly through the mist. His spiritual sense could not fathom its full extent. Deep within it glowed a radiant ball of golden light, pulsing with time law fluctuations. Han Li's eyes gleamed. This was surely the place where the Dark Heaven's devilish deity was sealed. He pressed a hand against the barrier. It felt soft yet unimaginably tough. With a grim look, his profound acupoints flared, and he unleashed a devastating punch. The barrier rippled violently, space trembling, yet it remained intact and rebounded with immense force, flinging him thousands of feet away. Even Han Li's powerful physique could not fully absorb the shock. His face paled as he steadied himself. His expression darkened. In an instant, he activated the heavenly baleful purgatory arts, transforming into a towering devilish deity with 3 heads and 6 arms, those of the giant mountain ape, the true dragon, and the Kunpeng. His aura surged, shaking the surrounding space. Beyond the barrier, the golden light quivered faintly before settling again, unseen by Han Li. Roaring, he drove all 6 fists into the white light barrier. The barrier shuddered far more violently than before, yet it endured. A vast, pliant force surged forth, steadily neutralizing the terrifying strength of his blows, holding firm against even his transformed might. Han Li's brows knitted faintly. In the next breath, the white radiance barrier rebounded to its pristine state, hurling him backward through the air once more. The colossal devilish deity staggered nearly 20 paces before it could steady itself, staring at the barrier in stunned disbelief. Among all of Han Li's cultivation methods, the heavenly baleful purgatory arts stood supreme in destructive might. Yet even this peerless art failed to shatter the obstruction. Naturally, he still possessed other techniques and secret means. But judging from the present situation, none of them were likely to alter the outcome. Just then, the silver figure perched upon his shoulder released a piercing cry and once again transformed into the essence fire raven. As it was about to surge forward, the surrounding mist suddenly rippled violently, accompanied by a deep, thunderous roar. The white bead shot out of the raven's body for the second time of its own accord, causing Han Li's expression to darken slightly. So the final array core had been destroyed as well? Han Li had expected this eventuality, but not at such speed. With matters unfolding so rapidly, time was no longer on his side. If the obstruction ahead could not be cleared swiftly, the situation would soon spiral out of control. With that thought, Han Li turned back toward the white light barrier, only to see it flicker erratically. A few breaths later, it collapsed with a dull thud, disintegrating into countless motes of white light that faded into nothingness. Han Li stood momentarily frozen. Could it be that once all 5 array cores were destroyed, the barrier was meant to dissipate on its own? At the same moment, Lei Yude and Su Anqian stood together behind a massive boulder on a low mountain peak. A white light barrier enveloped them, misty radiance flowing across its surface. Lending it an otherworldly air, several dozen kilometers away stood the remnants of a green palace, now reduced to rubble. From within the ruins, Lan Yuanzi and Lan Yan shot forth. Their streaks of light merged as one, their speed surging dramatically as they vanished into the distance in a flash. Close on their heels followed a group of black figures suffused with surging devilish qi, flying away amid jubilant cries. Lei Yusei formed a hand seal. The white light barrier around himself and Su Anqian dissolved, transforming into a white ring that slipped back into his sleeve. Lei Yuche, why did you insist we do nothing? Su Anqian demanded bitterly. If we had acted, we might have saved this array core. It would have been pointless, Lei Yuche replied with a sigh. Lan Yuanzi and Lan Yan were formidable even before, and with that blue pouch in their hands, we stood no chance. Had I been alone, I might have gambled, but with you beside me, I couldn't afford such risks. Su Anqian fell silent, complex emotions flickering through her eyes. All 5 array cores are gone, she said quietly. What now? Remain at ease, Lei Yusei replied. The situation is still manageable. We'll begin repairing the array. With that, he headed toward the ruined green palace, Su Anqian following close behind. At the summit of the colossal mountain, Han Li emerged from the sea of white mist to behold a sapphire sky adorned with sparse drifting clouds. Suspended above the peak was the golden radiance he had glimpsed earlier, within which hovered an immense and majestic palace. A glimmer lit Han Li's eyes as he flew toward it. Suddenly, the heavens churned violently. A massive white cloud materialized out of nowhere, streaked through with countless flashes of white light. The surrounding origin chi surged toward it in a frenzy, and in an instant, the cloud swelled to fill nearly the entire sky. Thunder rumbled within, white lightning flashing as a crushing pressure descended. Howling winds swept across the mountain, stirring the mist into chaos, uprooting trees and scattering stones. Hanli's expression shifted. Just as he prepared to observe more closely, a violent commotion erupted within the cloud. The lightning intensified, and thick bolts crashed down across the mountain. The white lightning was blindingly bright, forcing all who witnessed it to avert their gaze. Its lightning law power was so overwhelming that even Han Li felt deeply unsettled. It resembled heavenly damnation lightning, yet was many times more terrifying. He attempted to revert to human form and retreat, but it was already too late. A dozen bolts struck him simultaneously, as though the heavens themselves sought to annihilate him. The oppressive will of heaven bore down upon his own, suppressing his intent to resist. Though his will faltered, his vast spiritual sense cast off the suppression in the next instant, yet the lightning was already upon him. Han Li plummeted downward, buying what little time he could, while unleashing a barrage of fist projections skyward. Each fist carried boundless devilish chi and terrifying power, tearing visible scars through space. Rifts bloomed and trembled, yet when the fists met the lightning, there was no thunderous clash. Instead, they dissolved instantly into black smoke. The white lightning pierced through effortlessly, slamming into the devilish deity below. Massive wounds were torn open, deep enough to reveal bone as the giant body smashed into a mountain, forming an enormous crater and sending debris flying. White lightning crawled across the body, erasing devilish chi wherever it touched. With his devilish chi rapidly obliterated, Han Li could no longer maintain the deity form and reverted to human shape. His face was deathly pale, his body riddled with gruesome wounds bleeding freely. Yet at the final moment, he had shifted just enough to spare his vital areas. The injuries looked horrific, but none were truly fatal. He immediately swallowed a crimson pill. Crimson light surged across his body as his wounds healed at a visible pace. The cloud and lightning thinned somewhat, but before Han Li could steady his breath, another wave descended. Though fewer in number, the bolts were no weaker. Now prepared, Han Li remained calm. Golden lightning danced over his body as he summoned the mantra-treasured axis, golden ripples spreading to shield him completely. He had only been injured before due to surprise. Now, he was confident in his defenses, yet the lightning did not strike him. Instead, it crashed into other parts of the mountain. Dull impacts echoed from beneath the mist, followed by anguished screams. Han Li's thoughts raced. This lightning targets devilish chi alone. Immortal Lord Taisui must have foreseen the array's collapse. Once broken, the barrier transformed into a heavenly lightning restriction to eradicate the released devilish beings. It was precisely because his heavenly baleful purgatory arts had produced devilish chi that he had been mistaken for one of them. Now, having returned to human form and concealed his aura with time and lightning laws, the lightning no longer regarded him as a target. With that realization, Han Li remained still, choosing to endure patiently. A third wave descended, then 3 more in succession, each weaker than the last. Only after the 6th did the white cloud finally disperse, its power spent. Once more, the serene blue sky revealed itself, as though the calamity had never occurred. Han Li let out a quiet breath of relief, then retracted the mantra-treasured axis and sped toward the golden palace ahead. As he drew near, a colossal plaque above the entrance came into view, inscribed with 3 sweeping characters. Eon Palace. The gate stood slightly ajar, brilliant golden radiance spilling forth from the crack. Within that glow surged vast fluctuations of time law power, interwoven with several other formidable auras that clearly belonged to powerful immortal treasures. Yet the opening was too narrow to peer inside, and with spiritual sense suppressed to an extreme degree, there was no way to probe the palace's interior. Han Li halted before the gates, his expression thoughtful. Before the palace stretched a wide plaza, and embedded within it stood numerous yellow stone swords. Their tips pointed skyward and their hilts sunk into the ground. Each sword towered nearly 1,000 feet tall, exuding dense earth law power. There were 36 in total, arranged in a complete sword array that sealed off the palace entrance. Anyone wishing to enter would have to pass through it. At that moment, the Essence Fire Raven leapt from Han Li's shoulder and darted eagerly toward the palace. Han Li frowned, swept his sleeve, and a burst of golden light wrapped around the raven, forcibly casting it into the flower branch domain. Ever since mastering Essential Fire Law, the creature had grown stronger and far too reckless. Turning back to the sword array, Hanli's brow slowly knit. At first glance, the formation appeared simple, yet the deeper he examined it, the more profound and unfathomable it became. Given enough time, he was confident he could unravel it, perhaps even refine his mastery of arrays. But time was precious. He could not linger. He flicked a finger, releasing a streak of golden sword chi over 100 feet long toward one of the stone swords. Instantly, dense yellow light flared across the sword's surface. The golden chi vanished upon contact, swallowed without a trace, and only then did the yellow glow recede. Hanli's gaze darkened. There would be no clever shortcuts here. After a brief pause, he formed a seal and summoned the mantra Treasured Axis once more. Waves of golden ripples spread outward, enveloping everything within 1,000-foot radius. Without hesitation, he stepped into the array. The world shifted. In the blink of an eye, Hanli found himself standing in a boundless yellow desert. Sand stretched endlessly in all directions, while above, dark yellow clouds pressed down with crushing force. This was no fragile illusion. Everything here was solid, flawless, with no weakness to exploit. Worse still, the space was saturated solely with Earth attribute spiritual chi, suppressing all other laws. He activated his infernal devilish eyes. But before he could fully inspect his surroundings, 36 colossal yellow stone swords manifested across the desert. Each radiated blinding light, shooting upward like towering pillars. Streams of yellow sword chi bloomed around them like giant flowers, then vanished, only to reappear around Hanli amid violent spatial distortions, slashing toward him from every direction. Hanli remained composed. His hands flew through seals as the mantra Treasured Axis spun faster behind him, the golden ripples contracting and condensing. One after another, the incoming sword chi froze the instant they pierced the ripples, forming a circular wall of suspended blades around him. More sword chi poured in relentlessly. Within moments, the wall became impossibly dense, sealing him in completely. Explosions of yellow light erupted as new attacks slammed into the barrier, and terrifying pressure surged inward from all sides. The golden ripples trembled on the verge of collapse. Hanli glanced upward. High in the sky, the 36 pillars of light had converged into a vast yellow cloud, countless runes flashing within as its aura climbed steadily. A grim glint flashed in his eyes. He changed hand seals, and his body swelled, transforming into a towering devilish deity with 3 heads and 6 arms. Over 900 acupoints ignited, starlight bursting forth to form a radiant barrier. With a thunderous roar, all 6 fists smashed into the surrounding wall of sword chi. Heaven and earth shook. The wall shattered open. Hanli instantly withdrew the mantra Treasured Axis and shot through the breach, charging straight at the nearest stone sword. Sword chi converged wildly to intercept him, but the starlight barrier held firm. In a blink, he arrived and unleashed a devastating punch, blowing the stone sword apart into motes of yellow light. Without pause, his remaining fists lashed out in different directions. 3 more stone swords exploded in rapid succession, though the farthest target endured as the fist projection weakened along the way. A faint smile crossed Hanli's face, then vanished. Though 4 stone swords were destroyed, their pillars of light still stood, dimmer yet unbroken. Earth attribute chi surged frantically into them, and within moments, new sword projections began to form, the shattered weapons on the verge of rebirth. Alarm flared in Hanli's eyes. He summoned his time spirit domain and swept all 6 arms, releasing over 200 time law threads. The threads split into 2 immense golden blades, each nearly 10 kilometers long, cleaving through the space on either side. At the same time, 36 azure bamboo cloudswarm swords burst forth, merging into a colossal golden lightning sword, tens of thousands of feet long, which shot straight toward the clouds above. Explosive booms echoed as the twin golden blades annihilated most of the stone swords, yet their pillars of light endured, and the broken swords began reforming once more. The lightning sword struck the yellow clouds, which shuddered slightly, then steadied, unscathed. Hanli's expression sank. Suddenly, the yellow clouds churned violently. Earth attribute spiritual chi flooded into them like a broken torrent. The pillars of light below were devoured entirely, the clouds swelling as a strange set of yellow gates emerged deep within, neither round nor square. Sword-shaped patterns covered their surface, radiating overwhelming sword chi and earth law power, vast and ancient, as though bound directly to heaven and earth. In that instant, gravity within the entire space multiplied more than 100-fold, crushing down upon Han Li and making even the slightest movement a grueling struggle.